Hi folks, Krzysztof the Polish Geek and welcome to another video in the You Should Be Watching series. And this time I decided to do it for another anime, the Vinland Saga. I mean, I already talked about it briefly when I did my top 25 favorite TV shows of all time and the Vinland Saga was on the list, but now I decided to talk more about it because, once again, the Vinland Saga is a really excellent and spectacular anime that totally deserves a You Should Be Watching video. So here we are. And by the way, I'm actually going to Japan very soon actually, so perfect to talk about anime right before going to Japan, but also when Steel Ball Run is going and so loving it already so much, but whatever. Welcome to another video in the You Should Be Watching series, and again we're discussing a Viking anime, the Vinland Saga, and I think the Vinland Saga, as I just said, is a really amazing anime about the Vikings, and I think the best Viking story ever told. Yes, even better than the Northmen, which I still consider one of the best movies of the decade, and we are basically more than halfway through this decade already, and yes, the Northmen is still very much one of my favorite movies of this decade, but I think the Vinland Saga is an even better story, especially that, I mean, it's much longer first and foremost, so you can have so many more details in it. Like, I love how historically authentic it is, beautiful and amazing animation, great characters as well as really deep, complex and really engaging storyline make it amazing, and one of my favorite animes of all time. Really love the Vinland Saga. First, I wanna talk about the animation. The animation in the Vinland Saga is gorgeous. I love all the landscapes, the attention to detail, and really the Nordic feeling that truly the images evoke very much. Like, there is such a huge variety of well-drawn landscapes, perfectly immersing the viewers in the world of the Vinland Saga, from European medieval castles, bloody battlefields, beauty of Nordic nature and snowy villages, as well as green forests and huge mountains, which all is also so consistent with the story and the real Viking culture of exploration and self-discovery. Again, animation is so beautiful and the art style is very unique and perfectly fitting with the story, themes and the setting. Speaking of which, the setting is definitely among the first things that define a series, any series, anime or not, to its audience, and can determine whether this is something you'll be interested or not. And I'm very much into history and Vikings, among other things. The Vinland Saga sets the stage by mostly taking place in the thousands in Nordic setting and very much into Viking culture. And considering that Viking culture is bathed in action, blood and violence, to put it lightly, that makes for a very exciting and continuously engaging watch for both anime fans and history fans. And it's very historically authentic as well. It's a fictional story, so it certainly isn't trying to be historically accurate, but it is historically authentic, and it mostly doesn't contradict real history. I mean, it might in some specific details, but it certainly doesn't in broad strokes. And this isn't to say that completely historically inaccurate means bad, like look at Braveheart, one of the best medieval movies, but very historically inaccurate. But at the same time, if historical contradiction bothers you, then I think the Vinland Saga doesn't do that for the most part. Vinland Saga series offers a realistic, gritty and well-researched portrayal of the 11th century Viking culture, including politics and societal structures. Of course, beautiful animation, spectacular action and authentic historical immersion don't mean much when you don't have an interesting and engaging story. But the story of the Vinland Saga is fantastic. The main character is a young boy named Thorfinn, whose pacifist father Thors gets killed in a duel by a mercenary named Askeladd. Thorfinn is consumed with vengeance, and that becomes practically his only purpose in life. He challenges Askeladd to a duel which he loses, but Askeladd develops lots of respect for the boy and accepts him into his company. Although Thorfinn spends years in Askeladd's company, deep down he still very much consumes with vengeance and hopes that someday he will challenge Askeladd to a duel once again and kill him. But he also grows to enjoy the many things that Askeladd and his company engage in, such as slaughtering innocent villages, which really shows how dark Thorfinn has really went. Askeladd, though, is not a one-dimensional villain that at first he comes across as, quite the opposite. He gets a very interesting and sad backstory, lots of character development, just like Thorfinn, and we learn so much about him, and we actually grow to like him in some ways, even though in the story he still very much engages in very heinous acts. And this isn't to say he becomes a good guy and we root for him, absolutely not. He's still very much a sadistic sociopath, but with some deep complexities, and we like his character and understand those deep complexities that run within him, even if he's still very much a terrible person that objectively does have to be stopped. The only character in the story that is a pure villain is King Sweyn. King Sweyn is the only character without any complexities or anything, the only character that is just straight up evil. And there are so many other characters in the story too. There is King Sweyn's son Canute, who also goes through a very huge character development. What makes the story of the Vinland Saga so great, among other things, is that it starts as a very simple revenge story set in the Viking time, but the story organically begins to unfold and takes an unexpected but very logical direction naturally developed by the seeds that are planted. And in Season 2, the story takes a very different direction. While Season 1 focused a lot on action and adventure, while Season 2 is very dialogue heavy and character focused. Again, Season 1 was also very character focused already, but Season 2 goes much further than that. For a lot of people this might not appeal, but if you understand, great stories don't need constant action and blood. And then if you understand that, you'll be rewarded with amazing characters and great character development and complete investment in the characters and what happens to them. Like in many ways, Season 2 could actually be considered a character study of Thorfinn. Like, there is actually a different video on YouTube by a different YouTuber who explains it perfectly, and why Season 2 did not appeal to a lot of people, actually. So, if you want to know more information and difference, then I suggest you check out that video. I think this guy explains it perfectly. Like again, let's get back to Thorfinn, the main character of the whole story, who might be one of the most dynamic characters to ever grace the screens. Like, Thorfinn goes actually through more than one character development actually, and everything about it feels so organic and natural and perfectly in line with the story being told and naturally bringing him to a place where he's supposed to be. Thorfinn starts as an innocent, spirited young boy, and he very much looks up to his father Thors, who is a complete pacifist. But then, when Thors gets killed in a duel by Askeladd, Thorfinn gets consumed with vengeance and becomes a young, cold-blooded, psychopathic Viking who again only cares for vengeance and shows a complete indifference to the suffering that he's causing. And this is also meaningful because this is actually exact opposite of what his father Thors would want from him. Like, Thorfinn's main goal becomes pretty much to avenge his father, but he fails to realize that at this point he has become an embodiment of everything that Thors has despised, and instead of actually remembering his father and wanting to make him proud, he just selfishly only cares about satisfying his bloodlust. And in Season 2 is the time where Thorfinn starts realizing the error of his ways and becomes a broken man who seeks redemption and tries his best to become a moral, upstanding man. And, spoiler alert, he does succeed, and later becomes possibly even a better man than his father ever was, and we can be certain that Thors would actually be very proud of him. But, enough with the spoilers. I'm spoiling quite a lot already, but just know that there is a lot more to the story than that. The dialogue in the Vinland Saga is very well written, and I love how in many ways the story is very philosophical and religious too, and it doesn't give simple answers to very complex questions. Like, they are not just discussed surface level like you'd imagine a bunch of school kids discussing in the classroom, but
still, don't forget, time is on your side. You'll grow stronger while I get older. A day might come when I actually lose to you. That's the way of things. Even the strongest die in the end. Look around you, Thorfinn. These stones weren't set by the ones who live in England now. The Saxons could never make that happen.
Actual deep, complex conversations between characters that are really thought-provoking. Like, one episode, for example, presents a very complex philosophical point of view, and then the next episode, instead of giving an answer, it revisits the question once again and further unpacks a more deep, thought-provoking points of view that really makes the viewer think and ponder. And the references of Norse mythology, which was the religion of the Vikings, is also very well done here. Like, because the Vinland Saga is grounded in reality, there isn't any supernatural element, but the influence and the effect Norse religion had on Vikings is very much here. Like ravens, for example, often show up, and their presence often serves as a way to link the series to Norse mythology without bringing in anything supernatural. Because the ravens in Norse mythology were believed to be the messengers of the main Norse god Odin. And while that doesn't necessarily mean those ravens actually were sent by Odin or that him and Norse pantheon are meant to be real, but it does very much serve as a symbol, further immersing the viewer in the Viking culture and their Norse religion. Another thing I love in this fantastic anime is how Viking culture and Norse mythology is contrasted with the Christian culture. Vikings historically often actually waged wars against Christians and Christianity, so something like that in the story like that is very much given. And there can be some funny banter between Christians and Norse pagan Vikings, and this is funny in some parts, but the story also doesn't hesitate to actually give more theological and thematic conversations between Christians and Norse pagans, and those conversations are also very educational and fascinating, and it very nicely shows how pagan Vikings viewed Christian religion and Jesus Christ. And in season 2, Christianity actually becomes one of the central themes of the story and plays a huge part in Thorfinn's redemption. The action and fight scenes are also great, like they should be in the Viking story. There aren't that many of them, and that's okay, because the priority here is the story, character development, and the rich world building, but still doesn't change the fact that when the fight scenes do happen, they are really amazing and masterfully crafted and choreographed, and it greatly fuses fight scenes with captivating animation to create really amazing and well done fighting scenes. Fight scenes are both spectacular but also pretty brutal, truly showing the brutality of the Viking times and the tough struggling situation that the characters participating in battle are actually in. And because you're invested in the characters, that adds even more layer to those battle scenes and makes you care about the outcome. The Vinland Saga is one of the greatest animes of all time. It has a really rich story and world building, really deep and complex characters, as well as fantastic immersive living world of the Vikings, and it's a perfect example of a story that takes real talent and good writing. Like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure might be my favorite anime of all time, but JoJo is very much an acquired taste and might not appeal to everyone, but the Vinland Saga is basically perfect for anyone who loves history as well as deep and complex stories with really fascinating characters. And I think, and again, is a perfect example that shows that animes can tell just as deep and compelling stories as Western entertainment, possibly even deeper. But again, if you love history and Vikings, as well as really fascinating characters with real, rich, deep, compelling stories, then what are you waiting for? Go ahead and watch the Vinland Saga. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Like, and if I ever hear anyone saying that, oh, animes isn't a serious entertainment, yada yada yada, then they should look no further than the Vinland Saga. So everyone, that concludes another video in the You Should Be Watching series, and thank you all of you for checking it out. Press the like button, please subscribe this channel, and I'll talk to you very, very soon in another video. Talk to you then. Bye.